Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Doyle, and this is the Verdigris Table, where I recently picked up a copy of this gem from my local library, Tales from the Yawning Portal. This may be one of my favorite books for Dungeons & Dragons. I love this thing, and I think it's incredibly underrated, and part of the reason I think it actually doesn't get more recognition is that it's actually a collection of adventures from previous versions of the game, updated for 5th edition, so kind of recycled. It's sort of like a best of compilation, honestly, with stuff stretching from 1978, originally written by the Gary Gygax, all the way through the decades to 2014 and playtest material that would eventually become 5th edition. White Plume Mountain, Against the Giants, Tomb of Horrors. There are some real classics in here. I'm a big fan of the first couple, the Sunless Citadel and the Forge of Fury, which were designed as the first and second introductory adventures for 3rd edition back in 2000. I'm going to do a full Dungeon Master walkthrough for these adventures soon, the way we did Lost Minds of Phandelver, so hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss that. I'm really looking forward to that, but in this one, I wanted to do more of a quick overview on this book as a whole, and zoom in a little bit on the introduction. What really sets Tales from the Yawning Portal apart from your more standard D&D adventures that Wizards of the Coast publishes is that this is a series of modules spanning 2 or 3 levels each that you can pretty easily just drag and drop into a larger campaign. The variety can really keep things interesting. We've got the site of an ancient elven dragon cult being fought over now by goblins and kobolds, while a druid is doing weird experiments with a vampiric tree down in the basement. There's an army of orcs and troglodytes occupying a lost dwarven stronghold where Dorgar avoid ghosts and devils, and that's just the first 2 adventures. We've got demons and dragons and wizards and undead, all sorts of stuff. The Fire King that's on the cover of the Player's Handbook, and the Arch-Lich on the Dungeon Master's Guide. In this book, the Beholder on the Monster Manual actually isn't here. He's in Undermountain, which we're going to circle back to in one sec. These modules are a really great size for adventure content. While I am definitely drawn to the idea of epic, high-concept campaigns that span levels and levels of interconnected stories, I find that in practice, those typical published adventures are a lot less flexible. Characters die, people's schedules change, players come and go, and that big-ass campaign never gets a conclusion. Or it goes on break for long enough that people start to lose the thread and lose interest. I have definitely seen way more characters end up stuck in limbo somewhere in the middle of a mega campaign that will never reach an ending than I have long-running singular story arcs that actually finished. It's sad, but it's true. I also really like Ghosts of Saltmarsh for the same reason, by the way. That's another 7 adventures that you can link up or easily separate out. And actually, they're also reworked and polished up versions of older modules from previous editions. But while those are all nautically themed, right, Tales from the Yawning Portal is bringing the dungeons. Now, we could argue about what makes a mega dungeon mega, and feel free to give your definition down in the comments, but most of these places have over 100 keyed locations across multiple levels, and that's going to provide several sessions worth of adventure. And while most of the modules here have like story connections to the world outside of the dungeon, for the most part, they're providing pretty self-contained adventure locations that you can just kind of drag and drop anywhere into your game world. So if you're building a sandbox and you want to sprinkle in some pretty serious and deadly, I might add, toys, this is a great get. If you wanted to give your players a ton of options or run an open table or like a West Marches style campaign, you could very quickly get that off the ground by grabbing the starter set and the essentials kit and, just finding a spot for the Sunless Citadel in the Neverwinter Woods and put the Forge of Fury in the foothills of the Sword Mountains, or you could just distribute all of that content across your own map with some homebrew stuff and you'd be good for a long while. I know, I've done it. A lot of fun. So, okay, this is a very adaptable book, but let's dive into the way they suggest to run it, because I simultaneously love this fantasy tavern that gives the book its name and think it would be potentially disastrous to frame these adventures the way they recommend. Now, I am on record as saying that good Dungeons & Dragons adventures start in a tavern, and I have come across very few that are as interesting as the Yawning Portal. It gets its name from this huge well that has been built around, which is actually the top of an ancient wizard tower that descends down into definitely a mega dungeon called Undermountain. Durham, the guy in the cover, the owner of the tavern, is a retired adventurer who went down there and came back up with vast wealth and apparent immortality. He built the Yawning Portal, and now he charges 1 gold to ride the rope, to get lowered down into the well. And if you survive, it costs another gold to be brought back up, though payment is required in advance. You send it up in the bucket to the tap room before you yourself are lifted out. There's all sorts of stories and rumors and interesting artifacts around this place from down there, and colorful characters, right? Filling the tap room, advancing their agendas, and taking bets on anybody brave enough or foolish enough to go down into Undermountain. Now, truly, this is a fantastic setup in my mind. Really, I think it's pretty brilliant. The only problem is that it's a fantastic setup for Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is a completely separate book, which has the 23 levels of Undermountain. Tales from the Yawning Portal assumes that your players are going to hang out in this tavern beside the entrance to this mythic dungeon and hear a story about some other place and opt to leave here and the whole city of Waterdeep and go have that adventure way over there. Then return to this tavern, maybe knock back a few more drinks, exchange some stories, as other people presumably go down that well, then set off for somewhere else. It's a little crazy. Now, I understand they needed something to tie all the modules, all these ideas together, and as like a literary device, yeah, okay, maybe it works. But I always say that writing an adventure is not writing a book. And I would strongly advise you to not use the first couple pages of this as written without making some big modifications. If you're going to run Dungeon of the Mad Mage, cool, awesome. It's worth checking out these first few pages to add a lot of flavor to the Yawning Portal, which is also in that one, but not quite as well developed. And you can absolutely lift and adapt this concept, right? Set up a bar outside of some other dungeon location that you're using. Again, it's a great idea in general, but if you are preparing to send your players to the Sunless Citadel or somewhere else in here, maybe don't start right outside a different adventure location. Still, this is an awesome book and likely to be one of the most useful for your collection if you're a dungeon master, in my opinion. Like I said, I borrowed this copy for free from the library, but if you want to purchase one, I'm a big fan of supporting your local neighborhood game store, which I did the first time I got one of these. But if you are shopping online, I've got an affiliate link in the description down below. I'll put the other books I mentioned there as well, because you can also take apart the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, though maybe with a little more effort than the box sets and Saltmarsh. Up next, we're going to really get into it with the first adventure in Tales from the Yawning Portal, The Sunless Citadel, which is an adventure I really love. Definitely looking forward to walking you through it. Until then, get out there, have fun, don't get drunk and go down any wells. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.